West Ham manager David Moyes confirms Declan Rice's departure from the club West Ham. Hello everyone, thank you for being part of the Arsenal chapter, and please subscribe and ring that notification bell so that you do not miss out on whatever I've got to bring to, as long as it is sports and as long as it is Arsenal related. Right about here, the Arsenal chapter with me, your very host Abu Carls, as I'm definitely dedicated into bringing to the latest trade as it comes in. We're talking about Declan Rice and his magical move to the club Arsenal, as we are getting the latest of information from different sources, but also from the one and only David Moyes, who is a football manager and has been managing the club West Ham, where Declan Rice has been playing for a bit of time. He said a few things about this transfer. If you are definitely interested about the confirmations of David Moyes, make sure that you definitely stick around. Anyway, let's get the party started. So, we definitely know that Declan Rice is heading to, or is actually already at the club Arsenal. Let's say heading to at £105 million. £105 million is what the club Arsenal has paid West Ham to make sure that he moves, and it will be paid. That amount of money is reportedly going to be paid in a period of something like 2 years. At first, the club Arsenal wanted this amount of money to be paid in a period of 5 years, but that has not been possible, with the club West Ham saying that is that Declan Rice has been a big impact on their club. And he involves quite a big amount of money, and for that, for them to do quite a lot of business, really, for them to do business with the club, they can't go up to 5 years. I mean, you're not going to find a football player like Declan Rice in that club of West Ham. A football player that is going to cost £105 million. It's going to be complicated for any club, for any football player to cost that amount of money, as long as he's in West Ham. But West Ham really have said goodbye to their best football player, and that is none other than Declan Rice, with quite big confirmations from the special, and I must say, David Moyes. Anyway, this is the special one, or he was the chosen one, something like that. Anyway, let's get into this, and we're talking about the football player going to the club Arsenal. Declan Rice going to the club Arsenal. I think this is going to be an amazing transfer. It's going to be a very wonderful transfer, because when you see how Declan Rice has helped West Ham, how he's been playing for West Ham, really you can tell that what he is going to take to the club Arsenal is quality, power and strength. And it will be remembered that the current manager of Arsenal, Mikel Arteta, and the technical director of Arsenal, Mr. Edu Gaspar, both of them have been trying to make sure that they can get a defensive midfielder who can probably do the job as good as anyway, they needed a midfielder, a defensive midfielder that has quite a bit of strength, actually a lot of strength and power, and all these lie in one football player, and that's Declan Rice, and he fits the job, and definitely he's the perfect man for the job. The fact that Arsenal is paying £105 million for Declan Rice, you can definitely tell how good a football player he is. He's definitely one that is going to bring quite a lot of change at the club Arsenal, as Arsenal are really looking into getting more football players. But the key football player in this transfer is none other than, in this transfer season, is none other than Declan Rice. Declan Rice really are looking at what he really will bring to the club Arsenal. It must be a lot. I mean, nobody's going to offer you a £105 million if you're not a good football player. And the thing with Declan Rice is that even when we could probably think that Declan Rice costs a bit of money, £105 million, It's not Arsenal only that was willing to pay that amount of money. I mean, Manchester United wanted to pay money. Actually, Manchester United wanted to make a swap deal, get two football players, Scott McTominay and Harry Maguire, and exchange them for Declan Rice, and also pay a bit of money. But that was not a big deal. That was not a big deal for the club West Ham, as West Ham really needed cash, not football players. They needed to think for themselves, really, and not get involved with any other business. And do not forget also that the football player really the football players also been linked to Manchester City, but Manchester City was beaten hands down. Arsenal won the bidding war that was between Manchester City and Arsenal, with Manchester City coming out and putting a bid of £90 million. And once that bid was put in, once that bid of £90 million was put in, Arsenal said, okay, let's get the party rolling. I'm not going to put in a £95 million. I'm putting in a £105 million. You put 110, I put in 120 million pound. Come on, let's go. Let's get the party going. So for some reason, Manchester City had to chicken off, and definitely had to move out of this transfer. In the current club that remained in this transfer 100% is none other than Arsenal. It's quite great news for Arsenal fans, as we already know, despite the fact that Mikel Arteta did not, in a recent interview, was it today, Mikel Arteta did not 100% disclose about what is going on. Mikel Arteta is one of those managers that always tries to keep information for himself when it comes to transfers, until the last moment when he's definitely going to sign the football player. Having said that, David Moyes is not just like that. David Moyes made confirmations, really. David Moyes has made confirmations today, and he's come out and said it's going to be difficult, it's going to be complicated for the club West Ham to move on without Declan Rice, because Declan Rice is irreplaceable. I mean, Declan Rice is a football player who costs £105 million. And the thing is, if the club West Ham wants to spend that amount of money, £105 million, on getting another football player, the question is, would West Ham attract a football player that is worth £105 million? That's where it becomes tricky for the club West Ham. And for some reason, I can understand why West Ham was trying to talk him through that he should probably stay at the club, remain at the club. I can completely understand the reason as to why, because they are not going to get another good football player like Declan Rice. And David Moyes has just confirmed today that his departure is definitely on. He's definitely leaving the club. He's left the club. It's going to be quite complicated for the club West Ham to get yet another football player like him. If they need a football player, that's how really it becomes a bit tricky. If West Ham needs a football player, then Declan Rice, they definitely have to make him. They have to make a Declan Rice. And the thing is, they cannot buy a football player like Declan Rice, because all those football players that are worth £100 million plus, they are always targets of top football clubs, and football clubs like Barcelona, Real Madrid, football players like Bayern Munich, Manchester United, Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool. And you will not hear a football player going into a club like West Ham for an amount of £100 million. And our anticipation is that even when West Ham gets the £105 million, what is going to be done is getting possibly 3 football players for that amount of money, because it's going to be a bit tricky for them. West Ham cannot afford West Ham cannot afford to gamble and say, are we bringing this football player? What if it doesn't work out? If it doesn't work out, what would West Ham do? We can definitely tell you that West Ham is definitely going to get a few football players out of that money, but also the fact that it's going to take a bit of time. They'll have to plan quite well. And David Moyes really came out and made more confirmations that they could not go into transfer business without confirmations, 100% confirmations of Declan Rice moving to the club Arsenal, and that would hinder their business because they are basing quite a lot on the amount of money that is in this transfer. Even though when you're going to buy a football player, if you're going to buy a football player that is worth maybe £50 million, £30 million, you need strategies in place. You definitely need strategies, and the fact that if it was just probably if it's not signed 100% that Declan Rice is going to Arsenal, you're not going to go to a club and say, we've got hopes of selling Declan Rice to Arsenal. You definitely need confirmations. You need confirmations that Declan Rice is at the club Arsenal. We've got this amount of money. They're going to pay this amount of money. They're going to pay £105 million over a period of 2 years or 3 years, whatever. So you can definitely tell that what David Moyes has been saying about the confirmations about this really was heading all into this transfer to the club Arsenal. However, he admitted and said it's gonna be very complicated and extremely complicated to replace Declan Rice, and that was quite good, and I think that's good. That's good confirmation. That's a valid confirmation that Declan Rice is definitely no longer a football player at the club West Ham and is a national football player. Quite a big number of football players definitely are going to be coming to the club Arsenal, the likes of Urian Timber, whose confirmations really are underway, and also looking at yet other football players that could be joining Arsenal. The list is quite big, but right about now, the center of focus of the football player that could be joining Arsenal is none other than Declan Rice, and it is anticipated that there is no transfer business that is going to be happening at the club Arsenal before Declan Rice's transfer is finalized 100%. Declan Rice has to put pen to paper. The lawyers have to sign and say that this is a deal that is done, sealed, and confirmed before the club really gets into yet another football player. However, having said that, Arsenal are still trying to make sure that they can scout and see who is going to be next in line, who's going to sign for the club Arsenal, who's going to sign this time around. If this deal is 100% done, who is going to sign, who is next, who's going to sign for the club Arsenal, who's going to make the news for the club Arsenal is coming to Arsenal. It's the transfer show, it's transfer business right about here. We talk about transfers and I always give you the latest of information about the club Arsenal when it comes to transfers. Anyway, it's the Arsenal chapter for you, and all you need to do is simple. Just subscribe, ring that notification bell so that you do not miss out on whatever we've got to bring to you, as long as it is sports and as long as it is Arsenal related right about here at the Arsenal chapter with me, your very host, Abu Karls, as I'm definitely dedicated to bring to you the latest straight as it comes in. So let's wait and see what the football player Declan Rice brings to the club Arsenal, as David Moyes has come out with direct confirmations that it's going to be quite complicated to replace the football player Declan Rice, and that proves to us 100% that Declan Rice really is no longer a football player at the club West Ham. So is quite good news for all Arsenal fans. And I think for those of you who've been waiting for the football player, I think it's time for me to tell you that the wait is done and confirmations are definitely in. Please subscribe and ring that notification bell so you do not miss out on whatever we've got to bring to, as long as it is sports and as long as it is Arsenal related. Right about here at the Arsenal chapter with me, your very host, Abu Kals. Thank you and goodbye for now.